Young guy Diego got into a very bad situation, from which he got out with the help of his intelligence. Now we will tell you this story, but before that, let us know in the comments from where you are watching this story. The air inside the San Diego County Courthouse was heavy, thick with anticipation. Rows of spectators packed the gallery, their hushed whispers filling the room as they watched the drama unfold. At the defendant's table stood a young man, his posture steady, his dark eyes scanning the courtroom with quiet confidence. Diego Morales, a 19-year-old Latino from Mexico, faced charges of grand theft auto and evading arrest, serious accusations that could derail his future. But Judge Edward Ramirez, presiding from his elevated bench, looked down at Diego with a faint smirk, as if he were just another misguided kid who didn't grasp the gravity of the moment. Ramirez tapped his pen against the desk, his gaze sweeping the room. "You think you're some kind of legal scholar, don't you?" he said, his voice laced with mockery. "This isn't a high school drama club, son." A ripple of laughter spread through the courtroom. The bailiff stifled a grin, the stenographer's lips twitched, and the prosecutor, a man named Lucas Vega, adjusted his flawless tie, clearly savoring the moment. But Diego didn't react to the taunts. His face remained calm, almost unreadable. He had spent years preparing for a moment like this, not as a defendant, but as someone who understood the system inside and out. Diego had grown up in a small town in Mexico before moving to California with his mother, Maria Morales. Maria worked as a legal secretary in a bustling law firm, and every night she came home with stories of courtrooms, of prosecutors bending the truth, judges favoring the powerful, and defense attorneys who barely showed up. Diego listened intently, absorbing every detail. By the time he was 15, he was poring over case files Maria brought home, treating them like puzzles to solve. He dreamed of becoming a lawyer, of standing up for people like him. Immigrants, outsiders, those the system overlooked. Though he never imagined he'd need to use his knowledge to defend himself, he was ready. "Let's wrap this up quickly," Ramirez sighed, flipping open the case file. "I've got a dinner meeting at 5. The gallery chuckled again, but Diego's eyes narrowed slightly. The judge had just made his first misstep, and though no one else in the room noticed, Diego saw an opening. Prosecutor Lucas Vega rose, exuding confidence. His tailored suit was impeccable, his voice polished and practiced, as if he'd already won. "Your Honor, the state will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Diego Morales, was caught behind the wheel of a stolen vehicle, a 2023 Lexus ES, reported missing mere hours before his arrest. Officers pursued him through the streets of San Diego, where he allegedly attempted to flee. His fingerprints were found on the steering wheel. The evidence is irrefutable." His words landed heavily, and the gallery stirred with murmurs. On the surface, the case seemed airtight. A stolen car, a chase, an arrest. Judge Ramirez nodded, glancing at Diego. "Go on," he said. Vega turned to the jury, his polished shoes clicking on the floor. "The defense may try to spin this as a misunderstanding, painting Mr. Morales as some innocent bystander." He paused, locking eyes with Diego. "But let's be real. Innocent people don't run from the police." The tension in the room thickened. Ramirez leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. Diego held his gaze unflinching. Vega continued, flipping through his notes. "Your Honor, I have the testimony of Officer Manuel Ortega, who personally witnessed the defendant driving the vehicle before he tried to escape. The car was confirmed stolen. The arrest was textbook." Ramirez exhaled, nodding. "Sounds clear enough." To most in the room, it probably was. A stolen car, a chase, a suspect caught. It all added up. But Diego had spent too long studying the law to miss the cracks in the story. He stayed silent, biding his time. The judge tapped his gavel lightly. "All right, let's hear from the defense." Diego's public defender, a woman named Carla Hernandez, stood, nervously shuffling her notes. "Your Honor, my client." Diego gently touched her arm, stopping her. She hesitated, then sat down. For the first time, he spoke. "I'll be representing myself, Your Honor." The room fell silent. Ramirez squinted, a faint smile playing on his lips. "You'll what?" Diego's voice was steady, unshaken. "I'll be defending myself." Murmurs spread through the gallery. The bailiff's eyebrows shot up, and Vega let out a sharp chuckle, though it carried a hint of unease. "This ought to be entertaining," he said. But no one was laughing when Diego stepped forward, because everything was about to shift. Diego adjusted his shirt, letting the silence linger just long enough to unsettle the room. Then he spoke. "Your Honor, before I proceed, I'd like to clarify something with the prosecution." Vega raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms. "Go ahead." Diego took a deliberate step forward. "You stated that Officer Manuel Ortega personally saw me driving the vehicle before my arrest, correct?" Vega nodded, his tone tinged with impatience. "That's right. It's in his report." Diego gave a slight nod, then turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I move to have that testimony excluded as evidence." Ramirez frowned. "On what grounds?" Diego's voice grew firmer. "Because Officer Ortega couldn't have seen me in that car. In fact, he wasn't even on duty when the chase began." A ripple of surprise ran through the gallery. Vega's brow furrowed, his composure slipping. "What are you talking about?" Diego pressed on, unshaken. "Your Honor, I request permission to verify Officer Ortega's GPS logs from that night. If his report claims he saw me in the vehicle, his location data should confirm it. But I'm willing to bet it won't." The murmurs in the gallery grew louder. Ramirez looked at Vega. "Counselor." Vega cleared his throat, his jaw tightening. "That report was filed by a sworn officer, Your Honor. Are we really going to take the defendant's word over a professional?" Diego shrugged, his tone almost casual. "If the officer was where he said he was, the GPS will prove it. But if he wasn't?" He let the question hang. Ramirez studied him for a long moment, then turned to Vega. "Does the prosecution object to verifying the officer's GPS logs?" Vega hesitated, and the pause was telling. The jury noticed. The gallery noticed. Most importantly, the judge noticed. Diego took a quiet breath. He had spent years watching trials, studying prosecutors' tactics, learning how they bent the system to their will. One thing he knew for certain. If Vega was confident in his case, he wouldn't be stalling. "No objections, Your Honor," Vega finally said. But the momentum had shifted. For the first time, the courtroom wasn't chuckling. The silence was deafening, but the tension roared. Vega shuffled his papers, his polished facade cracking. "Your Honor, while we await the GPS records, the fact remains. The defendant's fingerprints were found on the steering wheel of the stolen vehicle." Diego nodded, his expression neutral. "That's true," he said, stepping forward again. "But let's examine that evidence for a moment." Ramirez raised an eyebrow, gesturing for him to continue. Diego turned to the jury, meeting each juror's gaze. "The prosecution wants you to believe that my fingerprints in the car mean I stole it. That's their narrative. But let's think this through logically." He paused, his voice softening but still commanding. "Imagine you're at a car dealership and you sit in a display model. You grip the wheel, touch the door handle, then walk away. An hour later, someone steals that car. Do your fingerprints make you the thief?" A few jurors exchanged glances, and a low murmur came from the gallery. Diego continued. "The car in question was parked outside a convenience store hours before the alleged theft. I was at that store with friends, and yes, I leaned against the car as we walked by. I even opened the door because it was unlocked. It was a dumb moment, I'll admit, but I didn't get in, didn't drive it, didn't take anything. It was curiosity, nothing more." He let the words sink in, then sharpened his tone. "Does touching something make you a criminal?" Vega coughed, flipping through his notes, scrambling to regain control. But Diego wasn't done. "And while we're on the subject, let's talk about how those fingerprints were analyzed." He turned to Ramirez. "Your Honor, was the forensic specialist who processed this evidence subpoenaed to testify?" Ramirez blinked, caught off guard. He looked at Vega. The prosecutor hesitated, then reluctantly admitted, No, Diego's lips pressed into a thin line. So, the state is using forensic evidence to convict me, but they didn't see fit to bring in the expert who collected it? No chance for me to cross-examine, to question the chain of custody, or to challenge the analysis's accuracy. Vega's jaw clenched. Ramirez sighed, rubbing his temples. It was the look of a man realizing this case wasn't the slam dunk he'd expected. But Diego had one more card to play, and it would change everything. He took another step forward, his voice steady but resolute. Your Honor, I'd like to submit an official statement from the vehicle's owner as evidence. Ramirez frowned. The owner? Diego nodded. Yes, Mr. Jose Cruz, the registered owner of the stolen Lexus. He provided a statement to the police that, for some reason, was never included in the prosecution's filings. And I think I know why. He turned to Vega. Do you recall what Mr. Cruz told officers the night his car was stolen? Vega stiffened, knowing what was coming. Diego didn't wait for an answer. He pulled a printed transcript from his file and read aloud. I left my car running when I ducked into the pharmacy. Some guy jumped in and drove off, but it wasn't the guy you arrested. I saw the thief and he wasn't Latino. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. Diego held up the paper. This is from the original police report, the one the prosecution conveniently failed to mention. He turned back to Ramirez. The arresting officer was aware of this. The prosecution ignored it. And yet they want this jury to believe that I, someone who doesn't match the description of the actual thief, am guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Vega stepped forward. His voice strained as he tried to salvage the case. Your Honor, this is irrelevant. The defendant was caught in possession of the vehicle. But Diego shook his head. No, I wasn't. His voice didn't rise, but it cut through the room like a blade. I was arrested blocks away from where the car was abandoned, walking home after grabbing food with friends. I wasn't in the car, wasn't near it, wasn't running. The only thing tying me to this case is sloppy police work and assumptions. Ramirez let out a slow breath, rubbing his temple. The case was unraveling, and everyone could see it. Diego turned to the jury. The real thief got away that night. The police found a Latino kid in the same general area and decided that was good enough. That's what this case is really about. Silence fell. Ramirez cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. Does the prosecution have anything further? Vega stood rigid, his face flushed. No, Your Honor. The judge looked at Diego, then at the jury. Finally, he leaned forward and spoke the words that would echo in the room. Case dismissed. The courtroom erupted. Some clapped. Others whispered in disbelief. Reporters scribbled furiously in their notebooks. Diego didn't move immediately, letting the moment settle. Ramirez, still gripping his gavel, stared at him with an unreadable expression. There was something new in his eyes, respect, perhaps, or regret. Diego turned to leave, but the judge called out, Mr. Morales. Diego paused, not turning. Ramirez hesitated, then said, You should consider law school. Diego gave a faint smile. He didn't need to consider it, he was already on that path. Outside the courthouse, the air buzzed with voices. Reporters swarmed the steps, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. Did you expect the case to be dismissed? What's your next move? How does it feel to outsmart a seasoned prosecutor? Diego pulled his hoodie over his head, ignoring the clamor. He wasn't here for the spotlight. This wasn't about proving his intelligence, it was about something bigger. His mother, Maria, waited at the bottom of the steps, arms crossed, her face a mix of sternness and pride. You nearly gave me a heart attack, you know? She said, shaking her head. Diego grinned, scratching the back of his neck. Had to take a chance, Mama. She studied him for a moment, then pulled him into a tight hug. You've always been the stubborn one. The cameras kept flashing, but Diego tuned them out. Across the street, Judge Ramirez stood by his car, his posture different now, the arrogance gone. He watched Diego with a thoughtful expression. This case was supposed to be routine, just another day, another defendant, another conviction. But now he knew he'd remember this one, Because Diego had done something rare. He forced the system to confront itself. And this time it blinked. The lesson we must learn. How many other cases have played out like this? How many people have been convicted not because of evidence, but because of bias, shortcuts, and a system more concerned with closing cases than seeking truth? Diego had the knowledge to fight back. But what about those who don't? This isn't just one case, it's about all of them. Diego knew what came next. This courtroom wouldn't be his last, but next time he wouldn't be the defendant. He'd be the attorney, and he wouldn't be alone. If this story made you pause, even for a moment, share it. The justice system is built on laws, but it's run by people. And people can change, but only if we demand it. Spread this story, start the conversation. Because next time, it might not be Diego. It might be someone you know.